Hey everyone! Tonight we're diving into the incredible saga of a warrior woman, not some mythical queen, but a real Viking shield maiden. Fierce, battle-hardened, and feared across the North Sea. She embodied raw Norse grit and feminine power. Before you settle in, hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you genuinely vibe with what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's wild seeing viewers join from every corner of the globe. Now, dim those lights, maybe crank up a fan for some ambient hum, and let's sink into tonight's journey together. You enter this world in the dead of winter, because of course you do. The fire's barely lit, the midwife's drunk on honey mead, and the longhouse reeks of smoke, wet fur, and boiled cabbage. Your mother lies on wool blankets that haven't been washed since last harvest, gripping a wooden spoon like it's a weapon, which, let's be real, it often is. You don't cry. You roar. The midwife flinches. Your father, who's survived 3 raids and, allegedly, 1 troll, eyes you and mutters, she's gonna be trouble. The whole village nods like it's a death sentence. You're a girl, which means life's already a gamble. You'll either die young, get married off, or, if you're lucky and terrifying enough, skip all that and earn the title most girls only hear about in sagas, Shield Maiden. Your crib? A repurposed goat trough. You share it with a scrap of wool, a carved owl, and probably a spider named Hilda who refuses to move out. No lullabies here, just men snoring and someone sharpening an axe in the corner. Every few minutes, a dog wanders by and licks your forehead. Viking baby monitor, circa 800 AD. Your family includes 2 brothers who already smell like war, a grandmother who chats with ghosts, and an aunt married 3 times, all husbands mysteriously dead from training accidents. You're the 4th girl born this year, and the only one who didn't arrive screaming. You arrived glaring. Your name's picked based on 2 things: how loud you were and which ancestor hasn't had a baby named after them in a while. You end up with something like Fridas or Brynhild, which roughly translates to "May the gods have mercy on anyone who crosses her." You survive your first night more than some can say. The fire keeps you warm, the milk's fresh, and the lice arrive right on schedule. By week's end, the village already calls you the loud one. Someone carves you a wooden dagger for teething. You don't chew it. You practice your grip. At 2 years old, you're teething, mobile, and a menace. The world's your battlefield, and your first weapon? A sheep bone. Viking childhood isn't gentle. No plush toys, no safety rails, just whatever didn't make it into the stew. Your favorite toy? A wooden horse missing a leg, covered in bite marks from 3 cousins. You've also got a pig bladder ball and a stick that doubles as a sword, wand, or disciplinary tool for anything smaller than you. Your playground? The mud outside the longhouse, shared with livestock and future trauma. Nothing's childproof. Everything's sharp, flammable, or edible, sometimes all 3. You once swallowed a fishhook. The village cheered when it came out. Games are simple and brutal. Catch the chicken ends in scratches. Who can throw the rock farthest ends in bruises. Raid the neighbor's firewood ends in social tension. Your favorite? Ambush your cousin, which only ends when someone cries and an elder yells, "Thor's beard, not again." You learn social rules fast. Share food after licking it. Never touch someone's comb. Always let the chieftain's dog take the first bite, or it'll take it anyway, plus part of your hand. Formal education? Nah, you learn by watching. You see your mother grind grain and patch clothes. You see your father clean weapons and argue about taxes paid in fish. You see your siblings fight with sticks and impress each other by lifting goats. You try that too. It ends poorly. By 4, you can start a fire, skin a rabbit, and spot when adults are lying. You've got a talent for sneaking and stealing honey cakes. You get caught constantly. It builds character. Some kids are quiet and obedient. You? Not a chance. Dirt in your hair, blood on your tunic, pride in your tiny chest. Your grandmother pats your head and says, "She's got the look of someone who'll grow up to terrify men." You don't get it yet, but you like how it sounds. At 5, you've learned 2 things. Fire is life. Everything else is loud and freezing. Your education starts early, not in a classroom, but in the brutal reality of village life. First lesson, don't fall in the fjord. Second, if it's steaming, don't touch it. You fail both. There's no school. Your curriculum? Observation, repetition, and getting yelled at by adults holding sharp tools. Math? counting sheep and spoons. Lose either, and you get a hands-on lesson in consequences. Reading? You're shown runes carved in stone and told they mean death. You nod and memorize it. Vocabulary grows fast when half the words mean hit, bleed, or run. Your mother teaches you to grind grain without losing fingers. Your father shows you how to hold a blade without looking like you'll cry. Your uncle demonstrates how to gut a fish. Your aunt? How to gut a man, theoretically. No one uses baby talk. Adults speak plainly, even when you don't understand. You learn fast or get left behind, physically and socially. There are songs, but most are about blood feuds or dying gloriously in battle. You hum them while working. Your lullaby? A saga about a warrior getting his ribs pulled out through his back. Weirdly soothing. By 6, you can sharpen a blade, tie a knot, and predict storms by how the goats act. You also know how to lie convincingly, sneak extra berries, and throw rocks with sniper precision. You're not being raised. You're being forged like a sword in fire by people who haven't smiled since last solstice. But there's pride in it. When you get something right, no one claps. They grunt, nod, and let you do it again with slightly less supervision. You're not a child in the modern sense. You're a tiny adult with fewer responsibilities and more snot. Puberty hits like a bad omen, unannounced, inconvenient, and utterly indifferent to your feelings. One morning, you wake up taller, smellier, and filled with rage you can't explain. Your voice stays the same, but your insults hit harder. Your face produces more oil than a lantern. Your sweat could knock out a boar at 20 paces. Welcome to Viking adolescence. You bleed monthly. No pamphlet, no talk. Your mother hands you a scrap of wool and says, deal with it. And you do, because she's already gone back to skinning a rabbit. Your body changes, but your chores don't. You still haul water, chop wood, clean fish, and wrestle goats that hate you personally, now with back pain and a sudden urge to stab things. Everyone says it's normal. Training intensifies. No more wooden sticks. Now you use real blades, dull ones, at first, not to protect you, but to avoid replacing you yet. You're told to hit harder, move faster, and never cry unless it's from blood loss or joy. You fight the boys as equals. When you beat them, you're told not to brag. You do anyway quietly to the goats. Socially, things get weird. Some girls braid their hair carefully and flirt. You braid yours so it doesn't block your view in battle drills. When boys flirt, you ask if they can spar. Most back off. A few try. Fewer try twice. Evenings are spent cleaning weapons, eating stew, and trying not to think about the future. You don't dream of weddings. You dream of standing in a shield wall, shoulder to shoulder with warriors who never ask if you're strong enough. You're not there yet, but close. And when you catch your reflection in the blacksmith's shield, eyes fierce, hair wild, arms bruised, you don't see a girl anymore. You see a threat. You turn 12, which in Viking terms means you're now considered almost an adult, just old enough to ruin your life with steel. On your birthday, your father hands you a gift, something long, wrapped in cloth, heavy and cold against your palms. You unwrap it carefully, expecting a broom or maybe a stale loaf of bread. Instead, it's an axe, not some child's toy. A real axe, iron-bladed, leather-wrapped, sharp enough to split logs, bones, or fragile egos. You name it immediately, not out of sentimentality, but because it feels less terrifying if you treat it like a friend. You pick something appropriately menacing, like Wolfbiter or Mittens. You take it outside to test it. First swing, you miss the target completely, nearly taking out the fence. Second swing, you hit your own foot. You don't cry. You just sit there, bleeding quietly, wondering if this counts as a rite of passage or just a spectacularly bad idea with a metal edge. Your uncle bandages your toe, chuckling. That's how you learn, he says, then offers you a pig's ear as consolation. You decline with what little dignity you have left. The next few weeks are a blur of trial and error, mostly error. You hack at logs, hay dummies, in the training post, which now leans drunkenly from all your off-center strikes. Your form improves. Your confidence grows. Your foot still throbs. You learn how to oil the handle, sharpen the blade, and swing without twisting your spine like a drunkard mid-dance. You train until your hands blister, then keep going until those blisters harden into calluses. Sometimes you train alone. Sometimes with your cousin, a boy 2 years older who insists on spinning like a top before each strike. as if auditioning for gods who definitely aren't watching. Then comes the day you block a blow, counter, and land a clean hit on your opponent's ribs. They drop their weapon, wheezing about seeing stars. You don't gloat much. That night, you lay your axe beside your bed. Not for decoration, not for tradition, but just in case someone mistakes you for anything less than a walking problem. It starts, like most bad ideas, with someone running their mouth. You're at training, minding your own business, when a boy taller than you, cockier than necessary, still smug from winning his last spar, looks you up and down and says, "You sure you want to fight? Wouldn't want you to break a nail." You don't respond with words. You step into the ring. Nod to the instructor. The boy smirks, already half turned to his snickering friends. One of them whispers, "Go easy on her." You don't go easy. First hit, blocked. Second, grazes his shoulder. Third, slams square into his chest, knocking the wind out of him with a sound like a dying goose. He recovers, swings wild, misses. You duck, sweep his legs, and plant him face first into the mud like you've been dreaming of this moment since birth. He tries to rise. You put your foot on his back. Silence. The boys stop laughing. The instructor clears his throat. Even the goats watching from the fence seem vaguely impressed. You step off, toss your braid like a battle flag, and walk away without a word. The boy coughs, mutters something that might have been good match, and limps off to nurse his bruised everything, especially his pride. Later, an elder pulls you aside. You brace for a scolding. Instead, they grunt. Good footwork. Your mother gives you a nod. Your father just raises an eyebrow, then slides you an extra portion of dried fish at dinner. In Viking culture, this is a standing ovation. The boy doesn't look at you for a week. When he finally does, it's with the cautious respect one gives a bear they've accidentally poked with a stick. You learn something that day. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to smile to be liked. And you never apologize when someone else's underestimation lands them in the dirt. Victory smells like sweat, mud, and slightly burnt stew. You'll never forget it. There's no grand ceremony when they finally call you a shield maiden. No glowing runes in the sky. No prophetic lightning strike. Just a cracked shield, a split lip, and an old warrior wiping blood from his beard before grunting. She's ready. You've spent the last 3 years earning every bruise like a badge of honor. Your mornings begin with drills that leave your muscles screaming. Your nights end with new aches in places you didn't know could hurt. You've learned to diagnose injuries by how they throb. Dull pain means a sprain, sharp stabs mean fresh cuts, and that persistent twinge in your ribs? That's from when your grandmother pinned you last week during wrestling practice. Your braid's longer now, not for beauty, but practicality. You tie it tight before sparring so it won't catch in your helmet or give enemies something to grab. Some girls weave beads into theirs. You prefer leather strips and teeth, not yours probably. The weight of it swinging behind you feels like a weapon itself. Training's changed. It's less about whether you can swing an axe, you can, and more about whether you'll keep your head when someone's trying to remove it. You spar with grown men now. No one holds back, and you don't expect them to. You've learned hesitation costs more than pain. It costs respect. Your shield arm's stronger than your sword arm. Your fingers stay permanently wrapped in leather or crusted with scabs. You don't win every match, but you never stop swinging, and that's what earns their nods. Then comes the day your shield splits. A clean hit from someone twice your size sends wooden shards flying. You toss the broken halves aside and keep fighting barehanded, bloodied, and just angry enough to make it interesting. You lose the match, but no one forgets how you fought. That's when the elders start saying your name differently. Not as a child to be corrected, but as a fighter to be relied upon. No one declares you a shield maiden outright, but they stop glancing sideways when you take your place in the shield wall. The braid, the blood, the bruises all earned. When you catch your reflection in a rain barrel, face smeared with dirt, knuckles split, eyes burning with something that isn't quite fury but isn't peace either, you realize you're not just becoming a shield maiden. You're becoming the person others watch when things go wrong, just to see what you'll do. You finally make it onto a longship. Within the first hour, you deeply regret every life choice that brought you here. The deck's slick with seawater and vomit. The wind doesn't blow, it slaps. Your rowing bench might as well be a torture device designed specifically to insult your spine. You're packed shoulder to shoulder with warriors who smell like old leather, sour mead, and optimism that died 3 days ago. There's no personal space. Shift slightly left, and your knee bumps someone's axe. Lean right, and a stranger sneezes directly into your hair. Above you, seagulls scream like they're personally mocking your suffering. Rowing isn't glamorous. It's full-body punishment disguised as transportation. By mid-morning, your hands blister. By noon, those blisters have blisters. Your palms feel like they've been grated against a cheese grater. The crew tells you this means you're doing it right. There's no relief, just the endless pull of oars, the creak of wood, and the growing suspicion that this entire voyage was planned by someone who hates joy. Meals are bleak affairs. Dried fish that taste like the inside of a helmet. Hard bread that could double as a weapon. Water that's technically still water if you're feeling generous. You chew slowly, contemplating mutiny. At night, you sleep curled against the ship's side, using your shield as a blanket and your axe as a pillow. The waves rock you gently, or maybe that's just the snoring crewman beside you rolling with the ship. Either way, you drift off dreaming of solid ground and the lingering suspicion that you're slowly turning into a salted piece of jerky. But despite the pain, the cold, the constant dampness, there's something else too. The thrill of open water stretching endlessly. The unspoken camaraderie of shared suffering. The quiet pride when you realize you're not a tag-along. You're not a mascot. You earned this spot. And when the shoreline finally appears, a dark smudge on the horizon, your hands ache, your shoulders burn, and your heart pounds like a war drum. You're exhausted. You're hungry. You're mildly seasick. And you've never been more ready for anything in your life. The coastline emerges like a secret the land didn't want to share. A quiet village of thatched roofs, thin trails of chimney smoke, chickens pecking at dirt, maybe a hopeful goat chewing on someone's laundry. You're about to ruin its entire day. As the longship scrapes against shore, your stomach drops, not from guilt, but from the visceral, heart-pounding panic of this is really happening. This isn't training. This isn't sparring. This is steel and blood and consequences. And if you trip in the mud and stab yourself before the enemy gets the chance, you'll never live it down. You jump into shallow water. The beach is softer than expected. Your boots sink, nearly twisting your ankle before you even reach dry land. Around you, battle cries erupt, loud, primal, and mostly improvised. Yours comes out like a seagull choking on a fish. It's fine. You're new at this. Your first opponent isn't a warrior. It's a chicken. The demon bird charges, wings flapping like it has personal vendetta. You sidestep just in time, then swing at a farmer holding a pitchfork. He drops it and runs. You chase him for 3 steps before remembering you're supposed to be looting, not playing tag. You break into a storage hut. It's full of cheese. So much cheese. You grab a wheel, because obviously, and shove a handful into your mouth as you run back outside. It tastes like victory and poor life choices. Chaos unfolds around you. Someone's shouting about Odin while tripping over a bucket. Another singing off-key near a burning haystack. A warrior next to you suddenly disappears into a well with a surprised yelp. You begin to understand why Viking raids are both feared and deeply confusing for historians. When it's over, when the village is pacified, a nice word for thoroughly robbed and slightly charred, your crew gathers the spoils. Silver coins, tools, a suspiciously nice stool. You limp back to the ship with a bruised shin, a stolen spoon, and half a wheel of now regretted cheese. It wasn't what you imagined. No slow-motion glory. No epic speeches. Just 20 minutes of adrenaline, noise, and the vague realization you might have screamed the entire time. But you're alive. You held your ground. You didn't drop your weapon after the first 5 minutes anyway. And even though your tunic smells like goat panic and your ears won't stop ringing, you feel it. That electric certainty the veterans whisper about around fires. That rush? Next time, you'll be better. The battle's over. The village smolders behind you, thoroughly confused about its life choices. Back on the longship, slumped over your oar, you smell like someone marinated anxiety in seawater and left it to ferment. Your tunic's torn. Your boots are more mud than leather. There's a cut on your shoulder you didn't notice until someone pointed it out. That'll scar nicely, they say with a grin, as if that's helpful medical advice. The row back is quieter. No one's shouting, just groaning, chewing stale bread, and retelling the raid with increasingly dramatic embellishments. Someone claims they single-handedly fought 5 armed villagers. You watched him drop his sword in a puddle and cry. No one corrects him. The man needs this. Food gets passed around, more dried fish, more weapon-grade bread, and the holy grail, a flask of ale. It's warm. It's bitter. It tastes like mold and triumph. You drink it anyway. You expected victory to feel louder. Instead, it settles into your bones like the ache after a good fight, quiet, persistent, and weirdly satisfying. That night at camp, the fire crackles. Meat sizzles. Someone's already asleep, snoring directly into their helmet. You sit cross-legged with the others, staring into the flames like they'll whisper the secrets of the universe. No God's answer. But someone passes you a roasted turnip, which is almost the same thing. Laughter starts, the exhausted, wheezing kind that comes from surviving something stupid together. You join in, not because it was funny, but because you did it. You were there. You didn't die. As you curl up with your dented shield, you know this is the first of many raids, the first of many aches. But tonight? Tonight, you sleep like the dead. The victorious dead. Raiding season ends with the first frost, and with it dies your brief flirtation with glory. You return home expecting rest, maybe even praise, but the gods laugh at expectations. What you get instead is winter. Not just any winter, a Viking winter. The kind that bites your nose off if you leave it unprotected, the kind that murders morale before breakfast. The fjords freeze over. Your longship gets dragged ashore and flipped upside down like a retired dragon. You pack away your armor, knowing full well the off-season is just survival on hard mode. Chores double. Daylight vanishes. Your motivation follows. You chop firewood until your fingers go numb. You haul buckets of water from a stream that stares back at you like it wants you dead. The goats, who've always hated you on a spiritual level, now rely on you for warmth and hay. You don't like them, but you respect their stubbornness. They return the favor by screaming at 3 a.m. outside your window. The food situation deteriorates immediately. Fresh meat becomes a distant memory. You now survive on smoked fish that taste like salted regret. Dried fish that could substitute for roofing tiles. Fish pickled in what might also be cleaning vinegar. For variety, there's turnip mash. It doesn't help. You eat in silence, wrapped in every layer you own. You smell like wet wool, damp fur, and poor life choices. Your hair hasn't been fully dry in weeks. Your toes feel like foreign objects. Your shield collects dust in the corner, but you polish it anyway, mostly to remember what happiness looked like. Your family is everywhere. The longhouse is crowded, smoky, and filled with arguments about who moved the firewood and why the stew smells like old socks. You train outside in the snow just to get away, even when your fingers freeze to your sword hilt. And yet, something changes. You get stronger, colder, both physically and emotionally. You start appreciating silence. You stop noticing the smell of pickled everything. You endure. Then one morning, you hear it, the first birdsong in months. A shrill, hopeful little thing that sounds like spring and possible migraines. You walk to the fjord. The ice is cracking. Raiding season will return. And when it does, you'll be ready. Angry, underfed, and itching for action. Winter tried. It didn't win. You survive winter, barely. Your reward? Marriage proposals. They start innocently enough. A local farmer's son shows up with dried fish and a hopeful grin. You'd make a strong wife, he says. You ask how well he swings an axe. He admits he doesn't. You admit you don't marry men who can't hold a blade. He leaves quickly. The next one tries harder, brings you an antler comb, beautifully carved. You accept it politely, then use it to scratch your hound behind the ears. He never returns. Soon it's a trend. Young men arriving with gifts and nervous energy, hoping to tame the village's most eligible shield maiden. The problem? You don't want taming. You want raiding. Sparring. Feasts where no one mentions goats. Your aunt says you should consider settling down. You tell her you'll settle when your axe rusts. She mutters about dying alone. You counter with dying gloriously, which sounds infinitely better. One particularly bold suitor challenges you to a duel. Tradition, he claims. You agree. He gets a bruise shaped like your shield and learns a valuable lesson about underestimating women who train in the snow for fun. Eventually, the offers stop. Word spreads. You're not interested. Not in being someone's wife. Not in stirring stew pots every night. Definitely not in arguing over who gets the good fur blanket. You want more, and less. More battle, less small talk. More glory, less goats. To be clear, you're not against love. You've just never met anyone who makes your heart race faster than a war drum. Until then, you're perfectly happy sharpening your axe in peace. Some village girls whisper you're too proud. Some village boys whisper they're terrified. Both are correct. You spend evenings on the training field instead of weaving. You polish your blade instead of planning a wedding. You sleep with your axe beside you, not out of loneliness, but because it's the only companion that never talks back. The first snowflakes of winter drift through the smoke hole of the longhouse, melting instantly on the packed earth floor. You watch them disappear as your brother Arngir slams another log onto the fire, sending up a shower of sparks that illuminate the carved beams overhead. Stop hogging the whetstone. Your sister Gudrun snaps, elbowing you aside. Her braids smell of wood smoke and the lavender she stubbornly insists on weaving into them, even in winter. You relinquish your spot by the grinding wheel with a grunt, your breath fogging in the suddenly frigid air as you step away from the hearth. Outside, the wind howls through the palisade like a wounded animal, rattling the animal hides stretched across the windows. Think the ice will hold for fishing tomorrow? Your youngest brother Egil asks, his nose pressed against the one glass window pane your family owns. His breath leaves cloudy circles on the precious surface. Your father doesn't look up from the harness he's mending, not unless you want to become an ice statue for the spring thaw. A burst of laughter erupts from the corner where your mother and aunt's card wool by firelight. Their fingers move in practiced rhythm, pulling tufts of sheep's wool into fluffy clouds that catch the flickering light. Did I ever tell you about the winter your Uncle Bjorn tried to? Your grandmother begins, only to be interrupted by a chorus of groans. Only every winter since I could walk, Gudrun mutters, but she scoots closer anyway, her spinning forgotten in her lap. You tune out the familiar tale, focusing instead on the comforting rasp of steel on stone as Gudrun sharpens her seeks. The rhythmic sound mixes with the crackling fire, the wind's mournful song, and the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer across the village, the heartbeat of winter survival. Then the door bursts open. A blast of freezing air swirls snowflakes around the thrall stumbling inside, his eyelashes frosted white. Jarl Thorkel's son is here. He gasps, stomping snow from his boots. With gifts. The grinding wool screeches to a halt. Gudrun's eyes lock onto yours with sudden intensity. Which son? Your mother asks sharply, her wool carding frozen mid-pull. The pretty one, the thrall says, then flinches when your mother's wooden spoon comes flying at his head. Magnus, your father clarifies, rubbing his beard in a way that means he's calculating something. The one with the good pasture land. Gudrun makes a sound like a strangled cat. You suddenly realize your hand has tightened around your dagger's hilt. Put that away. Your mother hisses at you, then turns to Gudrun. And fix your hair. Both of you. Try not to look like you've been wrestling bears all morning. You exchange a glance with your sister. The unspoken message is clear. This is going to be terrible. Magnus Olafsson stands in your family's longhouse like a golden statue misplaced by the gods. His cloak, fine blue wool trimmed with fox fur, drips melting snow onto the rushes covering the floor. Behind him, two thralls struggle with a carved chest that smells suspiciously of honey. Honored family. He begins with a bow so deep his blonde braids brush the ground. I come bearing gifts and honorable intentions. His gaze flicks to you and Gudrun, then quickly away, as if unsure which of you is the intended target. Your father rises slowly, his shadow stretching across the flickering wall tapestries. Magnus Olafsson, your father's pastures do well. They do, Magnus says with the careful tone of a man navigating a ship through icebergs. As do his herds, which is why. He gestures, and the thralls open the chest with a dramatic flourish. Inside gleams an assortment of treasures. A silver brooch shaped like a leaping stag, a comb carved from walrus ivory, two arm rings that catch the firelight like liquid gold. Gudrun makes another strangled noise. You discreetly step on her foot. For your lovely daughters, Magnus continues, his smile revealing a dimple that probably makes other girls swoon. Whichever might. That is to say, should they wish. The silence stretches. Outside, a loose shutter bangs rhythmically against the longhouse wall like a mocking drumbeat. Your grandmother saves everyone by suddenly cackling. In my day, a man knew which girl he wanted before hauling his treasures across the snow. Magnus flushes crimson. Your father clears his throat. Perhaps you'd like some mead while you consider your words? As the thralls scramble to serve drinks, Gudrun leans in, her whisper hot in your ear. That comb could sharpen 20 knives. You nod, watching Magnus accept a drinking horn with hands that, you note with satisfaction, are slightly too smooth. No calluses, no scars. The hands of a man who's never had to fight for anything. When his gaze finally lands on you, you make sure he sees you testing the edge of your dagger with your thumb. His smile wavers. The game begins. The mead horn passes from hand to hand, leaving sticky trails on the carved oak table. Magnus' laughter rings just a bit too loud, his cheeks flushed from both the fire's heat and his third serving of drink. You watch a drop of honeyed ale slide down his chin as he gestures wildly, recounting some exaggerated tale about a boar hunt. And then the beast charged straight at young Harold. Magnus slams his fist on the table, making the serving girl jump. But I threw my spear with such force. Did it stick? Gudrun interrupts sweetly, twirling a lock of hair around her finger. Magnus blinks. Pardon, in the boar? Or did you miss like you missed my sister's name earlier? The temperature in the longhouse seems to drop 10 degrees. Your mother's knitting needles freeze mid-stitch. Your father's grip tightens around his drinking horn. Even the thralls hovering by the door stop breathing. Magnus' mouth opens, then closes like a beached fish. Your grandmother saves the moment with a rasping cough that might be laughter. By Freya's girdle, girl, at least let the boy finish lying. I mean, telling his story. A log collapses in the hearth, sending up a shower of sparks that briefly illuminate the tension in the room. Shadows dance across the tapestries depicting your ancestors' exploits, their embroidered eyes seeming to judge this modern farce. Magnus clears his throat. That is. His gaze darts to you, then away again. Perhaps I should demonstrate my skills more directly, before anyone can react. He pushes back from the table with enough force to topple an empty mead cup. It rolls across the floorboards, coming to rest against your boot. I challenge you to a duel, Magnus declares, pointing at you with all the dramatic flair of a bad scald. Silence. Then Gudrun snorts into her drink. Your father sighs deeply, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Magnus, my daughter has been training since she could. Not that kind of duel. The young man's ears turn an impressive shade of red. A game of nefatiful. A collective exhale fills the room. The tension snaps like an overstretched bowstring. Your mother resumes knitting with renewed vigor. Oh, thank the Norns, she mutters. You lean forward, resting your elbows on the table. The wood is smooth under your forearms, worn by generations of similar elbows. What are the stakes? Magnus' grin returns, bolstered by liquid courage. If I win, you give me a chance to court you properly. And if I win, you keep the gifts and... He hesitates, then blurts. I'll teach you how to play the harp. Gudrun chokes on her meat. Your grandmother cackles. Oh, this I must see. The nefatiful board gleams between you, its inlaid oak squares polished by years of use. The carved bone pieces stand in neat rows, 12 white attackers surrounding the lone black king piece that represents you. Magnus makes his first move with exaggerated care, sliding a white piece diagonally. My father says strategy is the mark of a true leader. You move a black piece without hesitation. My father says talkers make good targets. A muscle twitches in Magnus' jaw. Outside, the wind howls through the rafters, carrying the faint smell of the stables where your warhorse is no doubt plotting revenge for being left out in the cold. The game progresses in fits and starts. Magnus plays cautiously, his brows knitting together each time you counter his moves with brutal efficiency. By the fifth round, sweat glistens at his temples despite the winter chill. You're quite good at this, he admits, chewing his lower lip as he studies the board. Your grandmother wheezes with laughter from her corner by the fire. She's slaughtered better men than you over this board, boy. Magnus flinches. You take the opportunity to capture 3 of his pieces in one move. As the game wears on, the longhouse settles into a rhythm around you. Your mother hums an old weaving song while carding wool. Your father sharpens axes by the firelight, the rhythmic scritch-scritch of whetstone on steel providing a steady counterpoint to the game. Even the thralls have gathered to watch, their whispers like dry leaves rustling in the corners. When you finally trap Magnus' king piece with 4 of your own, the room erupts. Gudrun whoops, clapping her hands. Your grandmother nearly topples off her stool laughing. Even your father grunts what might be approval. Magnus stares at the board in stunned silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, he throws back his head and laughs. Well played. By Thor's hammer. Well played indeed. He reaches across the board to clasp your forearm with unexpected strength. His palm is warmer than you expected, the calluses more pronounced than they first appeared. I suppose I owe you harp lessons now, he says with a rueful grin. You lean closer, lowering your voice so only he can hear. Or you could tell your father his pasture land isn't worth half what he claims. Magnus' smile doesn't waver, but his grip tightens just enough to acknowledge the hit. When he releases your arm, there's new respect in his eyes. Perhaps, he says lightly, I'll just bring better gifts next time. The morning after Magnus' visit dawns brittle and bright, sunlight glaring off the snowdrifts piled against the longhouse walls. You wake to find Gudrun already braiding her hair by the faint light creeping through the smoke hole, her fingers moving with unusual urgency. You're up early, you mutter, rubbing sleep from your eyes. The rushes beneath your sleeping furs crackle with frost. She doesn't look up. Magnus left something for you. At the foot of your bedroll sits a small birchwood box, its surface carved with intricate knotwork. The hinges creak when you lift the lid, releasing a scent of lavender and iron. Nestled in wool padding lies a whetstone finer than any you've seen, dark as night with veins of quartz running through it like frozen lightning. Your breath catches. This isn't just a gift. It's an artisan's treasure, the kind Jarl's weaponsmiths hoard. Gudrun's reflection appears over your shoulder in the polished bronze mirror hanging from the bedpost. He asked thralls about you for weeks, she says, her voice oddly tight. Learned you'd worn out 3 grinding stones this winter. You trace the quartz veins with a calloused finger. Outside, the village slowly stirs, axes splitting wood, children's laughter muffled by snow, the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. Then Gudrun ruins it. Mother wants you to give him a chance. The whetstone suddenly weighs as much as a boulder in your palm. You snap the box shut. Since when do you care what mother wants? Since father's cough came back with the frost. Gudrun whirls on you, her braids whipping like angry snakes. We can't all swing axes and call it glory, sister. Some of us have to think about alliances. About land. The words hang between you like drawn blades. Down by the hearth, your father's coughing fit begins on cue, wet and rattling, the sound that haunts every winter night. You stare at your sister, really look at her for the first time in months. The shadows under her eyes, the way her wool dress hangs looser than it should, the raw knuckles from endless spinning when she'd rather be. A horn blast shatters the moment, not the cheerful toot of a returning hunting party, the long, wavering note that means trouble. By the time you reach the palisade, the village is already armed and bristling. You elbow through the crowd, your breath steaming in great white plumes, until you reach the watchtower ladder. Move, you snarl at young Olaf, who's blocking the rungs with his gangly limbs. He scrambles aside so fast he nearly impales himself on his own spear. The view from the platform steals your breath. Across the frozen river, dark shapes move through the birch forest, too many to count, their outlines blurred by the morning mist rising off the ice. Sunlight glints off spear points like malicious stars. Danegeld collectors, mutters old Ragnar, spitting over the railing. His missing eye socket twitches, a souvenir from last season's tax negotiations. Your fingers tighten around the watchtower rail until the wood creaks. These aren't ordinary raiders. These are the king's men, come to collect their due in silver or blood. The horn sounds again, closer now. Behind you, Gudrun appears at the base of the tower, her face pale against her dark cloak. She holds up the birchwood box with the whetstone. "You forgot your gift," she says, her voice barely carrying over the rising wind. You stare at her, then at the approaching war party. The math is simple. A village your size can't fight the king's collectors, but it can bargain. Your stomach turns to ice harder than the river. The hall reeks of wet wool and tension when the Danegeld men arrive. Their leader, a mountain of a man with a braided beard threaded with silver rings, kicks snow from his boots onto your mother's freshly swept floor. Jarl Thorkel sends greetings. He rumbles, though his eyes say I'd rather be killing something. Your father rises slowly from his chair, gripping the armrest to hide the tremor in his hands. Our tribute was paid at harvest. The collector's smile shows too many teeth. The king's needs have grown. Behind him, warriors shift restlessly, their hands never far from their weapons. One, a woman with a scar splitting her eyebrow, catches your stare and winks. The negotiations crawl like a wounded beast. Silver changes hands. Promises are made. Threats linger unspoken in the smoky air. Through it all, you stand rigid by the hearth, the whetstone box burning a hole in your belt pouch. When the lead collector's gaze lands on you, his nostrils flare like he smells prey. "You must be the shield maiden," he says, rolling the word like a rotten piece of fruit. "Heard you turned down Thorkel's boy." Every eye in the hall swings to you. Your mother's fingers dig into your shoulder, hard enough to bruise. You meet the collector's stare. "I prefer men who earn their silver instead of collecting it." The silence that follows could freeze boiling water. Then, the scarred woman warrior barks a laugh. "Oh, I like her." The tension snaps. The collector scowls, but the moment passes. When they finally leave, the village is poorer by half its winter stores, but still standing. As the riders disappear into the twilight, Gudrun slips her hand into yours. Her fingers are icy. "You could have gone with them," she whispers. "Magnus would have protected you from this." You look at your sister, really look, and see the fear she's been hiding beneath all those careful braids and lavender scents. You squeeze her hand. Who would protect you? The wind howls through the village, carrying the first flakes of a new storm. Somewhere beyond the treeline, wolves begin to sing. Winter tightens its grip like a frozen fist around the village. Each morning, you break ice from the water buckets with your dagger, the cracks echoing through the silent dawn. The river groans under its icy shell, protesting the weight of snow that grows deeper with every storm. You find your father in the forge one bitter morning, his silhouette wavering in the heat haze as he pumps the bellows. The cough that's been plaguing him rattles like pebbles in a tin cup. "Let me." You take the bellows handle from his trembling fingers. His skin is furnace hot even through the winter chill. He doesn't argue, which terrifies you more than any raid warning. The forge becomes your sanctuary. The rhythmic whoosh of the bellows, the hiss of hot metal and quenching oil, the way the firelight dances across the soot-stained beams. These things make sense in a world gone mad with cold and hunger. Your newest project takes shape under your hammer, an axe blade forged from the last good iron ingot, its edge curved like a crescent moon. You lose track of time shaping it, only stopping when the light fades or your stomach growls loud enough to startle the ravens nesting in the rafters. One evening, Gudrun appears in the doorway, her shadow stretching long across the dirt floor. She holds 2 steaming bowls of thin barley soup. "You missed supper again," she says, but there's no accusation in it, just exhaustion. You wipe sweat from your brow with a sooty forearm. "I'm not hungry." The lie hangs between you like forged smoke. Gudrun sets one bowl on the anvil and takes a deliberate sip from the other, proving it's not poisoned. A peace offering. You relent, swallowing the lukewarm broth. It tastes of turnips and desperation. Gudrun watches you work, her eyes tracking the hammer's arc. Is that for the spring raids? You quench the blade, sending up a hissing cloud of steam. It's for surviving winter. She reaches out, hesitates, then touches the half-finished haft. It's beautiful. The simple praise catches you off guard. You stare at your sister, really look, and notice how the firelight turns her usual lavender scent into something smokier, wilder. Like the woman she might have been if she weren't always trying to be what everyone needed. A log collapses in the hearth, sending up a shower of sparks. Somewhere in the village, a dog barks at the encroaching darkness. Gudrun turns to leave, then pauses at the threshold. Magnus is coming back after the thaw. Your hammer stills. I know. She doesn't press. The door creaks shut behind her, leaving you alone with your thoughts and the ever-hungry fire. The cough takes your father on the longest night of winter. One moment he's arguing with the blacksmith about spearhead designs. The next he's on his knees in the snow, crimson splattering the pristine white like some grim omen. You and Egil carry him inside, his big frame suddenly light as kindling in your arms. Your mother's face goes stony as she directs the thralls to build up the fire, to fetch the herb wife, to boil water. The herb wife arrives smelling of mushrooms and damp wool. She presses wrinkled hands to your father's burning forehead, peers at his tongue, and finally shakes her head. Winter long, she pronounces, as if those two words explain everything. Your mother's hands clench in her apron. How long? The old woman shrugs. With care? Perhaps till spring. A strangled sound escapes Egil's throat. He's only 14, too young for this burden, too old to cry about it. Your father rallies enough to glare at all of you. Stop hovering like vultures. I'm not dead yet. But that night, as you keep vigil by his bedside, you hear the truth in every labored breath. The rattle, the pause that lasts just a bit too long between inhales. The way his big hands twitch toward his axe even in sleep. Gudrun appears at your elbow with a cup of bitter-smelling tea. You should rest. You stare at your father's face, the beard gone gray at the temples, the scar across his nose from that long-ago raid, the way his eyelashes flutter like a child's. I will, you lie. She doesn't call you on it. Just sits beside you in the flickering lamplight, her shoulder pressed to yours, watching the rise and fall of your father's chest like it's the only thing keeping the world turning. Outside, the wind howls through the empty training yard, stirring the snow into ghostly shapes that dance and whirl before vanishing into the night. The thaw comes suddenly, like a thief in the night. One morning you wake to the sound of dripping water, icicles weeping from the longhouse eaves, their tears carving tiny craters in the snow below. The world smells of wet earth and rotting ice. Your father sits propped by the hearth, wrapped in furs despite the unseasonable warmth. His face is gaunt, his beard patchy where fever stole its fullness, but his eyes track you as you move about the hall. Stop fussing, he grumbles when you adjust his blankets for the third time. His voice rasps like a rusty hinge, but there's strength in the grip that catches your wrist. The axe won't sharpen itself. You press his hand, once massive, now bony, between both of yours. His knuckles are a battlefield of scars and swollen joints. It can wait. It's waited long enough. He jerks his chin toward the door where sunlight glows like spilled mead. Go, before your mother finds more chores for you. The training yard is a quagmire of half-frozen mud that sucks at your boots with each step. You've barely begun honing your new axe's edge when a shadow falls across the whetstone. Magnus stands at the edge of the yard, his traveling cloak spattered with road filth. He looks older than you remember, his golden beard now threaded with copper, his face weathered by what must have been a hard winter in his own lands. You're still here, he says, as if he'd expected to find the village abandoned. You swipe sweat from your brow with the back of your hand. Where else would I be? He hesitates, then unslings a leather satchel from his shoulder. For your father. My grandmother swears by this tincture for winter lung. The glass vial he produces is shockingly delicate in your calloused hands, filled with amber liquid that glows in the sunlight. Through the glass, you can see tiny flecks of herbs suspended like stars in honey. You stare at him. You came all this way to deliver medicine? Magnus shifts his weight, his boots sinking deeper into the mud. I came to see if you'd reconsidered my offer. His blue eyes, lighter than you recall, like glacier ice, hold yours without flinching. But yes, the medicine too. A gust of wind rattles the bare branches overhead, sending a shower of melting snow onto both of you. Magnus laughs as icy water trickles down his collar, the sound unexpectedly warm. You tuck the vial carefully into your belt pouch. You play a terrible game of Nefatiful. His grin flashes white. And you're a terrible negotiator. I was hoping you'd demand more gifts before saying no again. The axe in your hand feels suddenly lighter. The winter, for all its cruelties, has sanded some of Magnus' polished edges. There's a new steadiness to him, a quiet resilience that wasn't there before. You jerk your chin toward the training posts. Help me test this blade. If you're not afraid to get dirty. Magnus strips off his cloak with exaggerated care, folding it over a dry patch of fence before rolling up his sleeves. The forearms he reveals are corded with muscle, the skin marked by fresh scars. Had some trouble with wolves this winter, he explains when he catches you looking. You toss him a practice axe. Show me. What follows isn't sparring. It's not even fighting. It's a dance. Magnus moves with surprising grace for a man his size, his footwork sure despite the treacherous mud. He parries your strikes with controlled precision, never pressing the attack but never yielding ground either. You've improved, you admit after a particularly clever feint nearly disarms you. He ducks your counterswing, his braid whipping through the air like a golden serpent. Had a good teacher. Who? You. The admission stops you cold. Your axe dips, leaving you open, but Magnus steps back instead of pressing his advantage. Around you, the yard is alive with the sounds of spring birdsong, dripping water, the distant bleating of newborn lambs. Magnus wipes sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of mud across his forehead. I've been practicing. Every day since our game. Something tight in your chest eases. This isn't the same boy who brought you a whetstone to win favor. This is a man who's faced his own winters and come out stronger. You lower your axe. Why? Magnus looks at you, really looks, with those glacier eyes. Because I want to be worthy of you. The simplicity of it hits like a hammer blow. No flowery speeches. No empty promises. Just raw, unvarnished truth. You're saved from responding by a commotion at the gate. Egil comes sprinting into the yard, his face flushed with excitement. Ships, he gasps, skidding to a stop in the mud. 3 longships coming up the river. Magnus goes very still. What banner? Egil's grin could light up the night. Ours. The river churns with the wake of the approaching longships, their dragon-headed prows cutting through the last remnants of winter ice. You stand at the dock with your family, the spring wind whipping your braid like a battle standard. Uncle Bjorn's banner, Egil breathes, pointing to the red and black striped sail on the lead ship. His voice cracks with excitement. Your mother's fingers dig into your shoulder. Whether to steady herself or you're not sure. The last time Bjorn came home, he brought a chest of silver and a dagger in his gut that took 3 moons to heal. The ships glide closer, their oars rising and falling in perfect unison. You count 20 rowers per vessel, seasoned warriors by the look of them, their faces weathered by salt and sun. But it's the figure standing at the prow of the lead ship that catches your eye. Not Bjorn. A woman. She stands a full head taller than the men around her, her flame-red hair whipping in the wind like a living thing. Moonlight pale skin, eyes the color of storm clouds. And armor, real armor, not the boiled leather most women wear, but a shirt of gleaming mail that hangs to her knees. Your breath catches. You've heard stories of Astrid Bjornsdottir, your father's sister, the woman they call the she-wolf of the north. But no tale could prepare you for the reality of her. The lead ship scrapes against the dock. Astrid leaps ashore before the ropes are even secured, her boots sending up a spray of icy water. She strides straight to your father, who's risen unsteadily from his sickbed to greet his sister. You look like death, she says by way of greeting, her voice rough as gravel. Your father's laugh turns into a cough. You look like father. Astrid's grin is all teeth. Then her gaze lands on you, and the world narrows to that steel-gray stare. She steps close, so close you catch the scent of salt and iron clinging to her, and grips your chin, turning your face toward the weak spring sunlight. Her calloused thumb brushes the scar on your cheekbone, the one you got last summer when a training sword slipped. You've her eyes. Booze, you whisper, suddenly 12 years old again. Astrid doesn't answer. Instead, she reaches into her belt pouch and pulls out a small iron pendant, a crude but unmistakable rendering of a snarling wolf. She presses it into your palm. The metal is warm from her skin. Your grandmother's, is all she says before turning to bellow orders at the crew. The pendant burns in your hand. You've never met your grandmother. All you know is she died in a raid when your father was a boy. But as you curl your fingers around the iron wolf, something settles inside you, an anchor in the storm of questions Astrid's arrival has stirred. Magnus appears at your elbow, his usual confidence muted in the she-wolf's presence. That's quite a family you have. You tuck the pendant into your shirt, where it rests cold against your collarbone. You wanted to be part of it. His smile is wry. Still do. A horn blast cuts through the chatter. Astrid stands atop a barrel, her silhouette cutting a sharp line against the pale spring sky. Enough gawking. She roars. We feast tonight, and at dawn we sail. A cheer goes up from the crew. Your father's face darkens. Astrid, he begins, but she cuts him off with a slashing gesture. Don't start, brother. You knew I'd come for her sooner or later. I slides down your spine. Her. Astrid jumps down from the barrel and strides toward you, the crowd parting like wheat before the scythe. She stops so close you can see the thin white scar that bisects her left eyebrow. Time to earn that axe, girl. The longhouse that night is louder than it's been in years. The table's grown under platters of roast boar, barrels of last summer's mead, and, thanks to Astrid's crew, actual fresh bread. The air is thick with smoke and laughter and the competing scents of a dozen different perfumes as the village women try to impress the newcomers. You sit between Egil and Magnus, picking at your food while Astrid holds court at the high table. She's halfway through a story about a rust merchant who tried to cheat her when your mother slams her tankard down hard enough to startle the dogs. You can't just swoop in and take her. Astrid arches one fiery brow. Can't I? Your mother turns to your father, her eyes blazing. Tell her. But your father just stares into his mead, his face drawn. When he finally speaks, his voice is so low you have to strain to hear it. She's right, wife. It's time. A hush falls over the hall. Even the fire seems to quiet. Your mother's face crumples. She turns to you, and in that moment, she looks older than you've ever seen her. You don't have to go. But you know, as surely as you know the weight of an axe in your hand, that you do. Astrid leans forward, her elbows on the table. There's a place in Valhalla for women who die at their looms, she says, not unkindly. But the songs remember those who die with swords in their hands. The pendant burns against your skin. Somewhere outside, an owl calls, a lonely sound that seems to echo in the sudden silence of the hall. Magnus' hand finds yours under the table. His palm is warm and steady. I could come with you, he murmurs, so low only you can hear. You squeeze his fingers once before letting go. This isn't your path. He doesn't argue, just nods, his eyes reflecting the torchlight like twin pools of molten gold. Across the hall, Astrid raises her horn. To the next generation of wolves. The cheer that follows shakes the rafters. Dawn arrives cloaked in mist that curls like ghost fingers over the riverbank. You stand at the dock, your breath fogging in the crisp air as the crew loads the last provisions onto Astrid's longship. The scent of tar and wet rope mixes with the earthy aroma of turned soil. Spring planting will begin soon, but you won't be here to see it. Your mother grips your face between her work-roughened hands, her thumbs tracing the contours of your cheekbones as if memorizing them. She doesn't cry. Viking women aren't raised to weep at partings, but her lower lip trembles when she presses a small linen bundle into your hands. Black bread, she says, her voice thick. For the journey. You know what she's really giving you. A taste of home to carry across the waves. The loaf is dense with barley and honey, the crust charred exactly how you like it. You tuck it into your pack with exaggerated care, blinking hard against the sudden sting in your eyes. Egil barrels into you next, nearly knocking you into the water with the force of his embrace. His voice cracks when he whispers, "Bring me back a sword." You ruffle his hair, still baby soft despite his 14 winters, and promise you will. Your father stands apart, leaning heavily on his walking stick. The winter lung has stolen his booming voice, leaving only a shadow of the man who taught you to hold an axe. When you approach, he doesn't speak, just presses something cold and heavy into your palm. Your grandmother's pendant. Not the iron wolf Astrid gave you, but a different treasure, a silver Valkyrie with sapphire eyes, her wings spread in eternal flight. The metal is worn smooth from decades of wear, the chain repaired in several places with careful solder. Your mother doesn't know I kept this, he rasps, folding your fingers around it. His skin is parchment thin over knobby knuckles. Don't die before you get a chance to piss her off by giving it to your own daughter. You swallow the lump in your throat and nod. Some goodbyes are too big for words. A hand claps your shoulder, Magnus, smelling of pine and saddle leather from his pre-dawn ride to the village. He's holding a package wrapped in oiled cloth. For luck, he says, his usual confidence replaced by something quieter. You unwrap the bundle to reveal a whetstone, not the fancy quartz one he gave you before, but a practical gray stone worn smooth from use. When you turn it over, you find runes carved into the flat side. Skalfirig, toasts to you. Your laugh comes out half sobbed. Of course he'd give you a rock that tells you to drink. Magnus grins, but his eyes are suspiciously bright. Come back in one piece, Shield Maiden. Or what? You challenge, slipping the stone into your belt pouch where it clinks against your father's Valkyrie. Or I'll have to rescue you, he shoots back. And we both know how much you'd hate that. Astrid's horn cuts through the moment, its brassy call echoing across the water. Time's up. The gangplank creaks under your boots as you board the longship. The deck sways beneath you, alive in a way the solid earth never was. The crew eyes you with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism as you stow your gear near the mast. A grizzled warrior with a nose like a squashed berry spits over the side. Another whelp to wet nurse. Astrid cuffs him upside the head without breaking stride. Shut your hole, Gunnar. This one's got Freya's own fury in her. You take your place at an oar, the wood smooth and dark from generations of hands. The salty tang of the sea mixes with the river's fresh mud scent as the crew prepares to shove off. On the dock, your family stands together, Egil waving wildly, your mother stone-faced, your father leaning on Magnus like they've known each other for years instead of weeks. The oars dip. The ship glides forward. And just like that, the life you've always known shrinks to a speck on the horizon. The river widens, the current quickening as it carries you toward open sea. Around you, the crew falls into the rhythm of rowing, 20 oars rising and falling like the wings of some great seabird. Astrid prowls the deck, adjusting lines and barking orders with the ease of long practice. When she reaches your bench, she pauses, her shadow falling across your straining shoulders. You're gripping it like you're trying to strangle the damn thing, she observes, nudging your hands with her boot. Looser. Let the or breathe. You adjust your grip, and suddenly the work is easier. They are no longer fighting you with every stroke. Astrid nods approvingly. First lesson of the sea, everything alive has its own rhythm. Learn it, or drown. The morning wears on, the sun climbing higher until it glints off the water like shattered glass. Your palms blister, then bleed, then numb. Salt spray stings your cheeks, drying into a crust that itches. By midday, the river empties into the fjord, and the real work begins. The sea is a different beast entirely, capricious and wild. It swells, lifting the ship like a toy before dropping it again with a stomach-lurching plunge. A wave crashes over the bow, drenching you in icy seawater. You gasp, sputtering as the crew laughs. Tastes like home, crows the woman at the next, or her grin missing 2 front teeth. Astrid braces herself against the mast, her red hair whipping like a banner. Ready to learn what it means to be a wolf, niece? You wipe salt water from your eyes and grin back. The wind fills the sails. The shore disappears. And just like that, you're gone. The salt-stained sails billow like the lungs of some great beast as the longship cuts through the fjord's mouth. You grip the gunwale, knuckles whitening as the first true ocean swell lifts the vessel with a groan of oak and iron. The deck tilts at an impossible angle, your stomach lurching in protest as cold spray stings your face. Breathe through your nose. Astrid barks from the steering oar, her laughter carried away by the wind. The sea smells fear like blood in the water. A grizzled crewman named Rold spits over the side, his beard crusted with salt. First time on open water, girl? His grin reveals 3 missing teeth. Prayed endured now while your breakfast still stays down. You open your mouth to retort, just as the ship plunges into a trough between waves. Your knees buckle. The world tilts. And suddenly you're on all fours, retching over the side while the crew's laughter rings in your ears. The humiliation burns worse than the bile in your throat. But then, a calloused hand grips your collar, hauling you upright. Astrid shoves a water skin into your hands, the liquid inside sloshing ominously. Drink. Slowly. The liquid is brackish and bitter, laced with something herbal that coats your tongue. Your stomach clenches in protest, then gradually settles. Around you, the crew has returned to their duties, coiling ropes, adjusting lines, their teasing forgotten as quickly as it began. Roll tosses you a rag. Wipe your face. We've got 3 days of this before we make land. 3 days. You stare at the horizon where sea meets sky in an endless gray blur. The village, your parents, Egil, even Magnus, feels like a lifetime away. The pendant around your neck seems to grow heavier, its weight a constant reminder of what you've left behind. The sea doesn't care about your homesickness. It doesn't care about anything at all. The next wave hits, and you grit your teeth, plant your feet, and learn to ride the swell like the wolves you're named for. By the third dawn, your body has learned the rhythm of the ship, the way it rises and falls, the creak of the mast, the subtle shift in the wind that warns of changing weather. Your palms have hardened into leather, your legs no longer buckle with every wave, and when Rold tosses you a line to coil, you catch it without thinking. Not bad, he grunts, watching your fingers work the rope into neat loops. For a landsman, Astrid appears at your shoulder, her face weathered by decades of salt and sun. See that dark line on the horizon? She points northeast where the sky meets a smudge of deeper blue. That's your first lesson in navigation. You squint. Land. Currents. She adjusts the steering or a fraction. The sea speaks in colors and currents. Learn to read them, and you'll never be lost. The crew moves around you with practiced ease, their banter a mix of insults and old jokes. The woman with missing teeth, Berna, teaches you the names of the ropes in a dialect so thick you have to ask twice. A young sailor named Kettle shows you how to tie knots that won't slip, his fingers moving with unconscious grace. You're not one of them yet, but you're no longer just cargo. When the first seabirds appear, white specks against the gray sky, the crew's mood shifts. Provisions are checked, weapons sharpened, quiet prayers muttered to forgotten gods. Astrid catches your questioning look. Birds mean land, she says, testing the edge of her axe. And land means two things: fresh water. She doesn't need to say the other. The axe in your hand feels suddenly heavier. The sea has taught you its rhythms. Now it's time to learn its violence. The seabirds multiply like fleas on a stray dog, first a dozen, then a swirling cloud that darkens the pale dawn sky. Their cries pierce the crash of waves, a shrill chorus that sets your teeth on edge. Land ho! Kettle shouts from the prow, his voice cracking with excitement. You scramble to the gunwale, fingers digging into rain-slick liquid as the horizon finally yields its secret. At first it's just a smudge, a darker blue against the endless gray. Then shapes emerge, jagged cliffs like broken teeth, a crescent of pale sand, and beyond them, the suggestion of green. Berna spits over the side, her missing teeth making the gesture oddly lopsided. Smell that. You inhale deeply. Salt. Rotting seaweed. And underneath it all, something earthy and alive, soil and grass and growing things after days of nothing but sterile ocean air. Your stomach growls like a cornered wolf. Astrid's hand lands on your shoulder, her grip firm enough to bruise. Eyes sharp now. First rule of landing, never assume an empty beach. The crew moves with sudden purpose, checking weapons and loosening shields. Rold tests the edge of his seeks with a thumb, then flashes you a yellowed grin. Time to see if you're your father's daughter or just another pretty face with an axe. The longship glides into shallow waters, its hull scraping against hidden rocks with a sound like bones breaking. You're among the first over the side, boots sinking into icy water that steals your breath. The current tugs at your legs, threatening to upend you as you wade ashore with shield held high. Sand grits between your teeth when you finally collapse on dry land, knees digging into the damp shore. Around you, the crew fans out, some to scout the tree line, others to fill water skins from a nearby stream. Berna kicks your boot. Stop tasting the beach and make yourself useful. You stagger upright, muscles protesting after days at sea. The forest looms ahead, dense with pine and birch, their branches whispering secrets in a language you don't yet understand. Something moves in the shadows. Your axe is in your hand before you consciously decide to draw it. A twig snaps. A bush trembles. Then, a rabbit bolts from cover, its white tail flashing like a surrender flag before disappearing into the undergrowth. The crew's laughter follows you all the way to the tree line. Fresh water, fresh meat, fresh trouble. That's Astrid's checklist as she divides the crew into hunting parties. You're paired with Rold and Kettle, the former grumbling about babysitting duty while the latter shows you how to set snares with practiced fingers. Watch the wind, Kettle murmurs, his breath warm against your ear as he adjusts your grip on the thin wire. Rabbits smell you before they see you. Rold snorts. And bears smell you before they eat you. Move quietly or we'll all be shitting in Valhalla by sundown. The forest swallows you whole, moss muffling your footsteps, branches snagging your cloak, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and something muskier beneath. Every rustle sets your heart racing. Every snapped twig feels like an ambush in the making. You spot the deer trail first, a narrow path of trampled ferns leading to a clearing where the grass grows thin and patchy. Kettle nods approvingly when you point it out, his fingers sketching quick sigils in the air. A prayer to Scotty, maybe, or just a hunter's superstition. The weight is agony. Mosquitoes feast on your neck. Your knees ache from crouching. The damp seeps through your trousers until you're convinced you'll never be dry again. Then, movement. A young stag picks its way into the clearing, nostrils flaring as it tests the wind. Sunlight dapples its russet coat, catching in the velvet of its budding antlers. Its sides heave with each breath, ribs visible beneath the skin. Winter has been hard here too. Rold doesn't hesitate. His arrow takes the stag through the neck, a clean kill that drops the animal before it knows it's in danger. Blood blooms bright against the green, steaming in the cool air. You're the first to reach it, your knife already drawn to begin the grisly work of field dressing. The stag's eye meets yours as you make the first cut, dark and liquid and infinitely sad. Its warmth coats your hands, sticky as sin. Kettle kneels beside you, his voice unusually gentle. Quickly now. The gods gave us this gift. Don't let it spoil. You work in silence, your fingers learning the anatomy of death as Rold keeps watch. The liver goes into a separate pouch, prized for stew. The heart wrapped in leaves, a tribute to Odin. The rest bundled in hide for carry. By the time you straighten, your back protests and your hands are painted red. The smell of blood clings to you, metallic and primal. Rold claps you on the shoulder, his approval as rough as everything else about him. Not bad. Wolf Cub. The nickname sticks. The scent of roasting venison draws the crew into a loose circle around the fire pit, their faces flickering in the firelight like a gallery of carved idols. Astrid claims the choicest cut, a haunch still dripping pink juices onto the coals, and tears into it with her teeth, grease shining on her chin. Eat, she commands around a mouthful of meat, tossing a charred rib in your direction. Tomorrow we sail for the whale road. The marrow melts on your tongue, rich and gamey, the first hot meal in days. Around you, men and women lick grease from their fingers, their laughter punctuated by the occasional belch. Someone produces a skin of something sharp-smelling, not mead, but the clear, burning liquor the northern tribes distill from barley. Rold takes a long pull and passes it to you. Drink up, Wolf Cub. Put hair on your chest. The liquor hits like a warhammer to the skull. Your eyes water. Your throat convulses. The crew roars with laughter as you gasp for air, but there's no malice in it, only the rough camaraderie of people who've survived the same trials. Kettle thumps your back hard enough to dislodge a lung. That's the stuff to keep out the cold. You're about to retort when a sound cuts through the night, a distant, rhythmic thumping that sets your teeth on edge. The crew falls silent, hands drifting toward weapons. Drums, Berna mutters, her good eye scanning the tree lane. Astrid rises smoothly, wiping her hands on her trousers. Not drums. Her lips peel back in something too fierce to be called a smile. Footsteps. The fire pops, sending up a shower of sparks. In that instant of brightness, you see them, shadows moving at the forest's edge, their outlines blurred by the flickering light. Dozens. Maybe more. Rold spits into the fire. Well, shit. They come screaming out of the dark like demons from a Christian hell, painted faces, matted hair, weapons glinting in the firelight. The first arrow takes Kettle high in the shoulder, spinning him like a child's top. Shield wall. Astrid bellows, already moving. You barely get your shield up in time. An axe crashes against it with enough force to rattle your teeth. The impact drives you to one knee, but you surge upward, using the shield's edge to smash into your attacker's face. Bone crunches. Blood sprays. Someone screams, maybe you. The night dissolves into chaos. You fight back to back with Berna, her one good eye gleaming like a wolf's in the dark. Her seeks flicks out, quick as a striking snake, opening a man's throat with surgical precision. Watch your left. She snarls, and you pivot just in time to catch a spear thrust on your shield. The force of it drives splinters into your forearm, but you barely feel the pain. Your axe finds a belly, the blade parting flesh like water. Something heavy slams into your side, a club, maybe, or a rock. You go down hard, the breath driven from your lungs. A figure looms over you, his face painted with swirling black patterns. You roll, grabbing a handful of hot coals from the fire pit and flinging them into his eyes. His shriek is the sweetest music you've ever heard. You're on your feet in an instant, your axe singing as it cleaves through the night. The battle lust rises in your throat like bile, bitter and intoxicating. You lose track of time. of wounds, of anything but the next enemy, the next kill. Then, as suddenly as it began, it's over. The attackers melt back into the forest, their wounded dragged behind them. The beach is littered with bodies, some theirs, some yours. Kettle kneels beside a still form, his hands red to the elbows. Astrid surveys the carnage, her chest heaving. Tally. 3 dead, Rold reports grimly. Twice that wounded. Berna prods a corpse with her boot. Coastal tribes. Must have been watching us since we landed. Your hands won't stop shaking. The adrenaline crash leaves you lightheaded, your limbs suddenly heavy as lead. The cut on your arm stings where sweat and salt water have worked their way into the wound. Astrid grips your chin, turning your face toward the firelight. Her eyes scan yours for something fear, maybe, or hesitation. Whatever she finds seems to satisfy her. Welcome to the Whale Road, Nice. Dawn finds you digging graves in the wet sand, your muscles screaming with every shovelful. The sea breeze carries the stench of blood and voided bowels, a sickly sweet counterpoint to the salt air. Kettle wraps the dead in their cloaks, no time for proper shrouds, but enough dignity to send them to the afterlife with their weapons and a few personal trinkets. One man gets a carved wooden horse, its paint worn smooth from years of handling. Another, a lock of hair tied with a red ribbon. You help lower them into the pits, the weight of their bodies surprisingly light in death. As the sand swallows them, Astrid raises a horn of that burning liquor. To Egil, son of Armjorn, she intones, pouring a measure onto the grave, who died with his face to the enemy and his sword in his hand. The crew echoes the toast, their voices rough with grief and exhaustion. The liquor goes around again, but this time it tastes different, not just fire, but memory. Rold finds you staring at the blood crusted under your fingernails. First kill's always the hardest, he grunts, offering a water skin. You rinse your hands in silence, watching the pink swirls disappear into the sand. The salt water stings your cuts, but the pain is clean, honest. Berna limps over, her left leg bandaged where a spear found its mark. She presses a small object into your palm, a carved bone bead, its surface worn smooth by years of wear. Took this off one of them, she says, her voice low. Souvenir. The bead is warm from her skin, its edges rounded by time. You tuck it into your belt pouch beside your grandmother's pendant, a tangible piece of the night's horror. Astrid calls the crew together, her face grim. We sail with the tide. These waters aren't safe anymore. No one argues. The wounded are loaded onto the ship with care, their groans muffled by strips of leather to bite down on. The dead are left to the gulls and the shifting sands. No time for proper funeral rites when the living are still in danger. As the longship pulls away from shore, you watch the beach recede, the graves already blurring into the landscape. The wind carries the scent of burning wood, the pyre they'll never get. Your fingers find the bead in your pouch, rolling it back and forth like a prayer. Some lessons can't be taught, only survive. The open sea greets you like a jilted lover, all rolling swells and spiteful winds that slap stinging spray across your cheeks. The longship groans as it climbs each wave, timbers protesting like an old man's joints. 3 days since the ambush, and the salt air still carries the metallic tang of blood from between the deck planks, no matter how many times you scrub. Astrid stands at the prow, her braids whipping like crimson serpents against the gray sky. She hasn't slept since the attack, her storm cloud eyes scanning the horizon with unnatural intensity. When you bring her a water skin, her fingers brush yours, icy despite the summer warmth. You feel it too, she murmurs, more statement than question. A shiver crawls up your spine. The sea stretches empty in every direction, yet your skin prickles as if 100 eyes watch from the depths. Even the gulls have abandoned you, their absence more ominous than any omen. Rold spits over the rail, his usual gruffness edged with unease. Sea's too quiet. Berna sharpens her seeks with methodical strokes, the rhythmic scrape of steel on stone setting your teeth on edge. Storm coming. Not a prediction. A verdict. The first fat raindrop hits your forehead like a warning slap. Then the sky ruptures. Chaos. The world dissolves into a roaring, heaving nightmare of wind and water. The sail tears with a sound like a dying scream, the shreds whipping through the air like vengeful spirits. Waves crash over the gunwales, each one a freezing fist that threatens to drag you into the abyss. Bail. Astrid's voice cuts through the tempest, raw as a fresh wound. Or swim. You grab a bucket, joining the desperate chain of sailors scooping water and hurling it back at the sea that seeks to claim you. The deck bucks beneath your feet. sending you crashing into Kettle. His lips move, but the storm steals his words. You only see the flash of his teeth before a wave swallows him whole. Your scream is lost in the wind. Then Rold's meaty hand yanks you back from the edge, his grip the only solid thing in this liquid hell. Not today, Wolf Cub. Lightning forks across the sky, illuminating the crew's faces in ghastly flashes, eyes wide with terror, mouth stretched in wordless shouts. Berna lashes herself to the mast with practiced knots, still clutching her seeks like a talisman. Astrid wrestles the steering oar, her muscles standing out like cables beneath her rain-slick skin. The ship crests a wave so high you glimpse the black maw of the trough beyond, a yawning void that could swallow mountains. For a heartbeat, you're weightless. Then the plunge. Your stomach lurches as the longship hurtles downward, the prow spearing into the depths. Water explodes over the deck, the cold so intense it burns. The ropes tethering the cargo snap like dried twigs, sending barrels tumbling into the maelstrom. Something hard strikes your temple. The world narrows to a gray tunnel. The bucket slips from your numb fingers. Darkness. Sunlight stabs your eyes like a dagger. You groan, rolling onto your side to vomit seawater onto warm sand. Every muscle screams in protest as you push yourself upright, blinking against the glare. The beach stretches before you, a narrow crescent of golden sand wedged between towering cliffs and the relentless sea. Debris litters the shore, splintered planks, a waterlogged shield, the bloated corpse of a seabird. No ship, no crew. Your throat constricts. Astrid, the cliffs throw your voice back at you, mocking. The only answer is the sigh of waves and the distant cry of a gull. Then a groan. Rold lies half buried in the surf, his beard matted with seaweed. You drag him above the tide line, your arms trembling with the effort. He coughs up a gallon of seawater before fixing you with a bleary stare. Where's the others? You shake your head, scanning the beach again. A flash of color catches your eye, a scrap of red fabric tangled in the rocks. Berna's headscarf. The discovery spurs you into motion. You find Kettle wedged between two boulders, his left arm bent at an unnatural angle. Berna lies further up the beach, her seeks still clutched in her fist even in unconsciousness. One by one, you drag them to safety, your breath coming in ragged gasps. But no Astrid. The sun climbs higher, baking the sand beneath your feet. You're about to search the tide pools when a shadow falls across you. Rold points wordlessly at the cliffs. There, silhouetted against the sky like some ancient goddess of vengeance, stands Astrid. She's alive, and she's found something. The climb to the cliffs is agony. Every muscle screams as you haul yourself up the jagged rocks, your fingers raw and bleeding from grasping at the unforgiving stone. The salt wind howls through the crevices, carrying with it the shrieks of gulls and the distant thunder of waves against the shore below. Astrid stands motionless at the cliff's edge, her silhouette stark against the pale sky. As you crest the final ledge, she doesn't turn, just raises a hand to point inland. Your breath catches. Nestled in the valley below lies a settlement unlike any you've seen. Circular stone huts cluster around a central plaza, their thatched roofs glowing golden in the afternoon sun. But it's the massive structure at the village's heart that steals your attention. A towering longhouse built from blackened timbers, its gables carved into the shapes of snarling beasts. Smoke, Astrid murmurs. You follow her gaze to the thin tendrils rising from several huts. The village isn't abandoned. Rold wheezes up behind you, his face flushed from the climb. Well, shit. Either we found salvation or a quicker death. Berna joins you, her one good eye narrowed against the glare. That's no fishing village. She spits over the cliff's edge. Look at the palisade. Now you see it. The sharpened logs encircling the settlement, the strategically placed watchtowers. This is a fortified position. Kettle cradles his broken arm against his chest. Friend or foe? Astrid's hand drops to the axe at her belt. Only one way to find out. Approaching the settlement feels like walking into a trap. The path down from the cliffs is too easy, the terrain too open. Your skin prickles with the certainty that unseen eyes track your every move. The gate stands open, an invitation or a challenge. Astrid leads the way, her stride confident despite the blood still crusted in her hair from the shipwreck. You follow close behind, your fingers itching for the axe that was lost to the sea. The villagers emerge slowly, first children peering from doorways, then women with wary eyes, and finally the men. They're tall and broad-shouldered, their faces marked with intricate blue tattoos that swirl like ocean currents. Their weapons remain sheathed, but their hands hover close. An old man steps forward, his white beard braided with silver rings. When he speaks, the language is strange yet familiar, like a song half remembered from childhood. Astrid responds in kind, her words flowing smoothly despite the archaic cadence. The old man's eyes widen slightly before he turns and barks an order to the gathered villagers. "What's happening?" you whisper to Rold. The old sailor grunts. Either we're about to be feasted or flayed. Hard to say. The tension breaks as suddenly as it came. The villagers scatter, some to fetch water, others to prepare food. A young woman with flame-red hair approaches you with a wooden bowl of something steaming. "Drink," she says in heavily accented Norse. "For the sea's bite." The liquid is bitter and herbal, warming you from the inside out. Around you, your crewmates are being similarly tended, Kettle's arms set in a splint, Berna's wounds cleaned and dressed. Astrid returns to your side, her expression unreadable. "We stay the night. They know of our shipwreck." "How?" She nods toward the cliffs where you first spotted the village. "Their fishermen saw the storm take us. These people are no strangers to the sea's wrath." As the sun dips below the horizon, torches are lit around the central plaza. The smell of roasting meat fills the air, and for the first time since the storm, you allow yourself to hope. Then you notice the villagers' eyes keep drifting to the black longhouse at the village's heart, and the way they whisper behind their hands when they think you're not looking. The fire pit in the plaza roars to life as the last light fades from the sky. Villagers bring out benches carved with serpentine patterns, arranging them in concentric circles around the flames. The old man, the village chief, you assume, takes the central seat, his silver-ringed beard glinting in the firelight. You're given a place of honor beside Astrid, though the villagers' stares make your skin crawl. The food is plentiful, thick stews, dark bread, roasted fish, but every bite feels like a test. The red-haired woman from earlier sits across from you, her blue eyes studying you with unsettling intensity. "You are far from home," she observes, tearing a piece of bread with sharp white teeth. You nod, suddenly aware of how ragged you must look. Salt-stained clothes, wind-chapped lips, the fresh scabs on your knuckles. "Our ship was taken by Agger," she interrupts, naming the sea god as casually as one might mention a neighbor. "But he spit you back out. That means something." A hush falls over the gathering as the chief rises. He speaks at length, his voice rising and falling like the tide. Though you catch only every third word, the gist is clear: a welcome, a warning, and something about fate. Astrid listens intently, her fingers tightening around her drinking horn when the chief gestures to the black longhouse. Whatever he says about it makes the villagers shift uneasily. The feast resumes, but the mood has shifted. The villagers' laughter sounds forced now, their eyes darting toward the ominous structure at every lull in conversation. When the red-haired woman leans close, her whisper sends a chill down your spine. They say the dead walk there when the moon is high. You follow her gaze to the longhouse, where the carved beasts seem to leer in the flickering torchlight. And for just a moment, you swear you see a shadow move behind the shuttered windows. The feast stretches into the deep night, the fire burning low as villagers drift away to their homes. The chief offers you shelter in a vacant hut near the palisade, its walls lined with sealskins and the air thick with the scent of dried herbs. "You sleep now," the red-haired woman says, her fingers lingering a moment too long on your wrist as she hands you a cup of something bitter. "Tomorrow, the sea road." The drink coats your tongue with the taste of iron and honey, sending warmth spiraling through your limbs. Your eyelids grow heavy despite your unease. The last thing you see before sleep claims you is Astrid sharpening her axe by the dying embers, her face carved in shadow. You stand on a beach of black sand, the waves lapping at your boots with tongues of froth. The sky hangs low and purple, streaked with clouds like old scars. Before you, the sea stretches endless and still, a mirror reflecting nothing. A voice whispers from the depths, bubbling up through the water in a language older than words. The waves part, and she rises, a woman wrought from seawater and moonlight, her hair a living tide of kelp and silver. "Little wolf," she murmurs, her voice the sigh of waves through sunken ships. "You carry my mark." Her fingers, long and webbed, brush the pendant at your throat. The Valkyrie's wings tremble against your skin, suddenly warm as blood. The vision shifts. Now you stand in the village plaza, but the huts are burning, their thatched roofs vomiting black smoke into a starless sky. The black longhouse doors stand wide, and from them pours a tide of shadows with too many teeth. The sea woman's laughter is the sound of ice breaking. The dead remember what the living forget. You wake gasping, your mouth full of the taste of salt and burning thatch. Dawn paints the village in pale gold, the quiet broken only by the distant cry of gulls. You stumble from the hut, your limbs heavy with the remnants of the drugged drink. The dream clings to you like a second skin, its images flashing behind your eyes with every blink. Astrid is already awake, her gear packed and her face grim. We leave within the hour. You tell her of the dream, the sea woman, the burning village, the shadows from the longhouse. Her jaw tightens with each detail, her fingers strain to the iron amulet at her throat. Agger's wife, she mutters. She doesn't appear without reason. Rolled spits into the dirt. That enough, we're stranded. Now we've got God's meddling. The villagers move about their morning routines, but their eyes keep darting to your group. The red-haired woman is nowhere to be seen. As you prepare to depart, the chief approaches with a bundle wrapped in sealskin. His gnarled hands unfold the package to reveal a dagger, its blade black as night, its hilt carved into the shape of a coiled serpent. For the dreamer, he says, pressing it into your hands. The metal is strangely warm, its weight perfect in your grip. Astrid hisses through her teeth. That's iron from the fallen star, the chief interrupts, his milky eyes boring into yours. It remembers the old songs. The gift feels like both a blessing and a burden. You slide the dagger into your belt, its presence a quiet hum against your hip. The villagers gather to watch you leave, their faces unreadable. As you pass the black longhouse, a shiver runs down your spine. The carved beasts seem to watch your departure, their wooden eyes gleaming with something like recognition. The path leads away from the sea, into the dense forest beyond the village. The trees close behind you like a curtain, the settlement vanishing as if it were never there. Only the dagger's weight reminds you it was real. The forest swallows you whole, its canopy so thick the sun struggles to pierce through. The air is heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, the silence broken only by the occasional rustle of unseen creatures. Berna walks point, her cheeks drawn and her good eye scanning the shadows. Kettle brings up the rear, his splinted arm cradled against his chest. Astrid sets a brutal pace, her strides eating up the uneven ground. You walk beside Rold. The old sailor's breath labored, but his step steady. That dream of yours, he mutters, keeping his voice low. You believe it? The dagger pulses against your hip. Do you? He grunts, adjusting the pack on his shoulders. I believe the sea's a bitch, and her husband's worse. But if some god's taken an interest in you, best not ignore it. The path narrows, forcing you single file between moss-covered boulders. Strange symbols are carved into the stone, spirals and jagged lines that make your eyes ache if you stare too long. Astrid traces one with a calloused finger. Warding marks. We're not the first to walk this road. A twig snaps somewhere to your left. Berna freezes, her blade raised. The forest holds its breath. Then, a rustle of leaves, the faintest impression of movement between the trees. Something is watching. Something that doesn't want to be seen. The forest parts abruptly, revealing a clearing where the earth has been trampled into hard-packed dirt. At its center stands a ring of weathered wooden posts, each carved with snarling wolf heads that seem to snarl at your approach. Faded banners, once bright red and blue, now some bleached to pale ghosts of color, flutter from the tops. A thing's dead, Astrid breathes, her hand tightening on her axe. A warrior circle. The scent hits you next. Iron and old blood, so thick it coats the back of your throat. The ground is littered with shattered shields, notched swords, and the occasional glint of a rusted helmet. This is no mere gathering place. This is a battlefield frozen in time. Berna kicks aside a broken spear shaft. Fresh tracks. Someone's been here recently. Rold crouches, running his fingers through the dirt. Not just someone, many someones. His eyes meet yours, grim. And they were dragging something heavy. A cold knot forms in your stomach. The dream flashes behind your eyes, the burning village, the shadows with too many teeth. Your fingers find the hilt of the black dagger, its warmth pulsing like a second heartbeat. Astrid strides into the circle, her boots kicking up puffs of ancient dust. She stops at the largest post, where a massive war shield hangs, its iron boss dented from countless blows. With a grunt, she rips it free, sending a shower of rusted nails clattering to the ground. Here, she tosses the shield to you. Better than nothing. The shield is heavier than it looks, the wood warped with age, but still solid. The rawhide grip molds to your hand as if made for you. When you slip your arm through the straps, The weight feels right, like an old friend return. Kettle limps to the far edge of the circle, where a pile of stones forms a crude altar. You'll want to see this. The stones are stained dark, their surfaces grooved with channels that lead to a hollow at the center. The hollow brims with a substance that glistens wetly in the dim light, not blood, but something thicker, blacker. Astrid dips 2 fingers into the substance and sniffs. Her face darkens. Seerwork. The word sends a ripple through the group. Seer, the magic of the old ones, the forbidden art that twists fate itself. Even battle-hardened warriors make the sign against evil at its mention. A twig snaps. You spin, shield raised, just as a figure emerges from the tree line. Not a villager, not a beast, a woman. She stands tall as Astrid, her muscular frame wrapped in a patchwork of leather and mail. A dozen braids whip around her face like serpents, each threaded with tiny bones that clack together with every movement. In one hand, she holds a spear tipped with yellowed ivory. In the other, the severed head of a wolf, its jaws propped open with a carved stick. Finally, the woman rasps, her voice like gravel underfoot. The shield maidens arrive. The bone-adorned woman circles your group like a wolf assessing prey, her pale eyes missing nothing. When she reaches you, she stops abruptly, her nose wrinkling as she sniffs the air near your face. You stink of rant's breath, she declares, naming the sea goddess who collects drowned souls. And something older. Her fingers dart toward your pendant, but you catch her wrist mid-reach. For a heartbeat, you're locked in silent struggle, her strength surprising, your grip ironclad. Astrid steps between you, her voice low and dangerous. We seek passage north. Not trouble. The woman throws back her head and laughs, the sound echoing unnaturally through the clearing. Trouble finds what it wants, sister. She gestures to the altar with her grisly wolf head trophy. Your coming was foretold in the entrails of the last full moon. Rold mutters a curse under his breath, but the woman ignores him, her attention fixed on Astrid. The black longhouse calls to its children. Even now, the draugr stir in their barrows. A chill runs down your spine. Draugr, the walking dead, corpses that refuse to stay buried. The seeress turns her unsettling gaze on you. You carry the iron that sings, the one who walks 2 paths. She leans close, her breath reeking of rotten meat. The dead know your name, little wolf. Verna's Seeks appears at the woman's throat. Enough riddles. What do you want? The seeress doesn't flinch, to see which path you choose. She steps back, spreading her arms wide. The way north is closed to living flesh, but the draugr's road. Her smile shows too many teeth. That lies open to those brave enough to take it. Astrid's axe is in her hand before you blink. Speak plain. Which? The barrows. The woman says simply. Walk the dead's path beneath the mountains. Emerge where the rivers run with sword metal. Silence falls over the clearing. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. Kettle is the first to break it. You're mad if you think we're crawling through some corpse-filled tunnel. The seeress shrugs, the bones in her hair clattering. Then die here, when the draugr come hunting. The choice is yours. She turns to leave, then pauses, glancing back over her shoulder. Oh, and little wolf? Her gaze locks onto yours. Mind the shadows. They bite. With that, she melts into the trees, leaving behind only the echo of clacking bones and the stench of her prophecy. The argument rages long into the afternoon. Rold wants to turn back, try for the coast. Kettle votes to press on through the forest. Draugr be damned. Verna stands silent, sharpening her blade with slow, deliberate strokes. Astrid paces the Thingstead's edge, her boots wearing a path in the blood-darkened earth. Every so often, her gaze flicks to you, weighing, measuring. Finally, she stops. We go north. Rold opens his mouth to protest, but Astrid silences him with a look. Not as prey, as hunters. She kicks aside a broken shield, revealing a depression in the earth, the faint outline of a hidden path leading deeper into the woods. If draugr walk, they'll have a master. And that, she bares her teeth. That's something I can kill. The others fall in line, though Kettle mutters about cursed ground and bad omens. As the group prepares to move out, Astrid pulls you aside, her voice barely above a whisper. That dagger the chief gave you. Have you felt it? Warm? Yes. You meet her gaze. You know what it is. She nods once, grim. A key. And a test. Her calloused hand grips your shoulder. The dead know your name because you're meant to walk among them. But remember, her fingers dig in hard enough to bruise. You're a shield maiden first, a wolf of the living world. Don't let the shadows make you forget. The sun dips below the trees as you set out, the shield heavy on your arm and the black dagger warmer than ever against your hip. Somewhere ahead, the dead are waiting, and they've been expecting you. The barrow entrance yawns before you like a rotten mouth, its stone teeth black with age. The last light of dusk paints the standing stones blood red as your party halts at the threshold. A gust of wind howls through the crevices, carrying the scent of damp earth and something fouler, old meat left too long in the dark. Astrid lights a torch, the flame guttering in the stale air. Stay close, and don't touch anything. The tunnel swallows you whole. The walls press in, slick with condensation that glistens in the torchlight. Strange symbols are carved into the stone, older than the ones in the forest, their meanings lost to time. Your shield scrapes against the narrow passage, the sound echoing like the rasp of a dying man's breath. Rold mutters a prayer to Thor under his breath. Birna walks backward half the time, her seeks held ready. Ketil's face is slick with sweat, his broken arm cradled close. Then you see it, the first corpse. It sits propped against the wall, clad in rusted mail, its skeletal hands folded over the hilt of a notched sword. The empty sockets of its skull seem to track your progress as you pass. Don't look at it, Astrid warns. Too late. The corpse's jaw creaks open. A whisper slithers out, not in your ears, but inside your skull, a language of graves and forgotten wars. Your pendant grows hot against your chest. The black dagger pulses at your hip like a living thing. The corpse's fingers twitch. Then the walls move. They rise from niches carved into the stone, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Draugr. Their flesh clings to their bones like rotten parchment, their eye sockets burning with cold blue fire. Ancient weapons gleam in their grip, the metal untouched by time. The first attack comes from the ceiling. A draugr drops onto Birna, its teeth sinking into her shoulder before she can scream. Rold cleaves its skull with a roar, but two more take its place. Shield wall. Astrid bellows. You form up instinctively, your back to Ketil's as the dead close in. The first draugr that reaches you meets your shield. The old wood shudders with the impact, but holds. Your borrowed dagger finds its ribs, the black blade sinking deep. The draugr shrieks, a sound that shakes dust from the ceiling. Where the dagger strikes, its flesh blackens and crumbles like burnt paper. Astrid's axe flashes in the torchlight, severing heads from shoulders. They fear the star iron. The battle becomes a blur of screaming dead and shouting living. You fight back to back. The tunnel so narrow the draugr can only come at you a few at a time. Birna seeks flicks like a serpent's tongue, finding gaps in ancient armor. Rold fights like a man half his age, his borrowed sword shearing through bone. Then the ground gives way beneath you. You're falling. The torch winks out. Cold air rushes past as you tumble into blackness, your shield torn from your grip. Something sharp grazes your ribs, a rock, a weapon, you can't tell. The impact when you land drives the breath from your lungs. Silence. Then light. Not torchlight. Not daylight. A cold blue glow that pulses from the walls themselves, revealing a cavern so vast the ceiling vanishes into shadow. The air hums with power, raising the hair on your arms. You're not alone. The draugr stand in silent ranks, their weapons grounded, their burning eyes fixed on the cavern center. There, on a dais of black stone, sits a figure clad in armor that seems to drink the light. Its helm is crowned with antlers, its skeletal fingers curled around a sword wreathed in pale flame. The king in the barrow. Your dagger burns against your hip, so hot now it sears your skin. The pendant at your throat is a brand. The king's head turns. Slowly, deliberately. You meet its gaze, and the world explodes. You stand on a bridge of light spanning an endless void. To one side, the living world, Astrid shouts, the clash of steel, the warmth of blood in your veins. To the other, the dead plains, silent, still, waiting. The king stands before you, his sword planted between you like a boundary marker. When he speaks, his voice is the grinding of glaciers. You are marked, little wolf. Your pendant pulses an answer. Choose. He extends a skeletal hand. Walk with me and command the dead. Turn away and be forgotten. The dagger in your hand thrums, its warmth spreading up your arm. The Valkyrie at your throat beats her wings against your skin. Somewhere in the distance, Astrid screams your name. You close your fingers around the pendant and choose. You wait gasping, your mouth full of dirt and blood. The cavern is dark again, the blue light extinguished. Cold iron presses against your palm, the dagger, now dull and quiet. Up. Astrid hauls you to your feet, her face streaked with soot and gore. Move. The draugr are gone. Only their weapons remain, scattered across the cavern floor like fallen leaves. The king's dais stands empty, his sword vanished. You stumble after Astrid, your legs numb, your mind reeling. The tunnel slopes upward, the air growing fresher with each step. When you burst into the moonlight, the others are already there, rolled leaning on a broken spear, burn binding kettle's wounds, all of them breathing hard. Astrid seizes your shoulders, her eyes wild. What did you see? You open your mouth. Close it. The memory is already fading, like a dream upon waking. Nothing, you lie. She searches your face for a long moment, then nods. Good. The walk back to the coast is silent. The forest seems quieter now, the trees standing aside to let you pass. When you reach the shore, dawn is breaking over the water, painting the waves in shades of gold and blood. A ship waits at anchor, not your lost longship, but a sturdy trader flying familiar colors. Astrid shades her eyes and laughs, the sound rough with relief. Looks like the gods aren't done with us yet. You touch the pendant at your throat, now cool and still. The dagger hangs heavy at your hip, its secrets buried deep. Some choices are meant to stay in the dark. You shoulder your pack and follow your crew toward the water, where the living world waits. The sea road calls, and the wolves of Midgard still have hunting to do.